All right, welcome back to Fight Talk, where we talk combat sports. My name is Austin Ullman, and today we need to examine the narrative around the Jon Jones-Stipe Miocic fight. And I'm partially responsible for this because anytime we've talked about this fight in the past, it's just been a general consensus that Jon Jones destroys him. And over the last week or so, the more I've thought about this, I thought this is an extremely stupid narrative. Stipe Miocic is a killer. And there's many reasons why people are counting Stipe Miocic out, and I'm going to address every single one of them in this video because I think it's wrong. And so there's kind of two things that stuck out to me. Jon Jones is minus 725 at this point in this fight. Stipe Miocic is plus 450. That is absolutely criminal to put a guy who is the heavyweight GOAT in the UFC at plus 450. I'm going to address the time off. Okay, I'm going to address all these things because they're important and they're things to think about when you're picking who you think is going to win this fight. But this is not just a guarantee. And for some reason, even the first time, people just assumed that Jon Jones was going to win this fight, and that is criminal. And by the way, let's remember why that first fight didn't happen. Jon Jones was injured. So we're going to talk about all of that. Okay, we'll start with some statistics. Let's talk about the fight itself. Why does Stipe Miocic have a chance in the fight itself? And the answer is this. In the striking matchup, Stipe Miocic outlands Jon Jones 52% to 45%. Stipe Miocic's knockout rate is 75% to 30% for Jon Jones. So Stipe gets knockouts in 75% of his fights, where it's 30% for Jon Jones. So if this fight takes place on the feet, the one thing Jon Jones has is a length advantage, but Stipe has everything else. Okay, and so what Stipe is going to try to do in this fight, and I'll touch on this later, he needs to get inside. He needs to get inside on this fight, but he is every single striking metric you can look at, significant strikes per minute, everything. Stipe Miocic is outlanding Jon Jones, and he has more power, significantly more power than Jon Jones in the stand-up game. So that leads everybody to believe, well, that might be true, but we're in an era where wrestling dominates, it feels like, right? And in this fight, it feels like Jon Jones can dominate with wrestling. Now, the issue is people haven't even considered, in people's heads, I think Jon Jones can just win in this fight however he wants. But the more you think about it, the more you think, okay, I guess Jon Jones will, he'll just take him down and wrestle him. Well, let's look at the metrics for that. Stipe's takedown defense is 72%. I did some math on this. 72% is his takedown defense. So he's one of the toughest heavyweights to bring down. Okay. Jon Jones has a 44% takedown percentage, which means on average, he would need 10 takedown attempts. That means with this matchup, there's a 12% takedown percentage for Jon Jones because of how good Stipe is against these takedowns. So on average, he would need 10 takedown attempts to get 1 to 2 takedowns in this fight. It's 1.2. So likely he would need 10 takedown attempts to get 1 takedown on Stipe Miocic. And this isn't a guy, Stipe Miocic, who's been in there with some bum wrestlers. Now, he's seen Ngannou, he's seen Cormier, right? He's seen the best wrestlers in this heavyweight division, and he's succeeded. So this is not a guy that is just going to strike, and get taken down quite easily. So think about that. 72% to 44% makes a 12% chance per takedown attempt that Stipe will actually be taken down. And even in the scenario, let's just say Jon Jones tries for 2 per round, that's 10 over the 5 rounds. Well, now you have a chance, if you do 2 per round and you get 10, we're saying he's either going to get 1 or 2 takedowns in this fight. Let's say he gets 1 takedown. Let's say he gets 2 takedowns, just for sake of the argument. We'll round up on this one. That's a round. So that's 1 round. That's not a big deal for Stipe if he spends 1 round on the ground. And by the way, let's add in there. Stipe is able to transition 48% of his grappling exchanges. So half of the time he gets taken down, he's able to exchange those grappling exchanges. That is important. Jones spends and this is important, Jones spends 48% of his time in his fights on the ground controlling, which means half the time Jon Jones is in the octagon, he's on the ground or in a grappling exchange in control. Meaning, if he's only going to be able to do that 12% of the time against Stipe, that's not a typical Jon Jones fight. And you've already put this guy in some rough waters that he's not used to. Okay, so big time statistics there. So we're starting with this. Stipe is significantly a better striker. And the odds are in Stipe's favor when it comes to Jon Jones trying to take him down in this fight. Stipe's takedown defense is really, really good. How about this? Leg kicks. Jon Jones has faced difficulty defending leg kicks in the past. We've seen that, and he puts so much pressure on the front foot. And Stipe can use the leg kick effectively, so that could compromise Jones early and turn this into a boxing match and really hurt Jones's chances to shoot takedowns if that front leg is damaged. Leg kick accuracy, 66% for Stipe Miocic compared to 52% for Jon Jones. Okay, another statistic there that has Stipe in the lead. Now, while Jones, I talked about this earlier, while Jones usually finds a lot of success in those close clinch spots, like I said, he controls half of the fights in spots like these. He usually finds a lot of success in spots like that. That's where Stipe is at his best. So where Jon Jones likes to go, that's where Stipe is at his best. Stipe is at his best because he doesn't have the length advantage. Stipe is at his best with short hooks and uppercuts and those short shots close into his opponent. He's not a far away Israel Adesanya piece you apart striker. He's the guy that wants to get close and use sharp hooks, sharp uppercuts, sharp shots inside. 65% of his shots are landed inside. Another reason, another area in this fight where Stipe Miocic has the advantage. How about this? People want to talk about stamina. Stipe Miocic wins 65% of his fights in championship rounds. So in rounds 4 or 5, Stipe wins more than half of his fights in those rounds. Stipe Miocic leads Jon Jones 16.3 to 13.8 on average in strikes landed in round 5. So in the 5th round of a fight, when guys are tired, Stipe lands 16 shots a round, Jon Jones lands 13 shots a round. Okay, how about this? Percentage of fights against former or current champions. Stipe Miocic, 40% of his fights, half of his fights are against former or current champions in his past. Jon Jones is 36%. Now this is where it gets fun. And this is where I expose the narrative that people have been putting out there about time off and all those things. Okay, we're getting into that right now. How about this? Experience at heavyweight. That's a massive thing. Jon Jones has fought one fight at heavyweight. That's a big deal. And by the way, that fight, it was domination wrestling 2 rounds. So he looks good at heavyweight, but have we seen him go 5 rounds at heavyweight? And the answer is no. There's unknown conditioning for Jones at heavyweight. We just don't know what that's going to look like. And I just told you, Stipe's been sharper in rounds 4 and 5 than Jones. In the championship rounds, Stipe has been better in these past fights. Okay, how about age? There's the age thing. Stipe, he's going to be 42. This guy is basically a grandfather at this point. And it's not true. And it doesn't affect these heavyweights much. It just doesn't. We've seen that. And I'm going to show you some people here who have won past 40. And not all of them are heavyweights. And not all of them are light heavyweights. How about this one? Robbie Lawler just beat Nico Price at UFC 290. He was 41 years old in that fight. And that fight was at what? 170? 170? I think it was 185 actually. So that was a middleweight fight. And he won it at 41 years old. Right away by knockout. So that Robbie Lawler, who just dominated a good fighter, he did that at middleweight at 41. And Stipe is 42 at heavyweight, And people are acting like he's not even going to be able to make it into the octagon. Now, I understand there's videos that people see that it didn't look like he was walking great before and all of those things. This guy's smart enough. If that was a real issue, I don't think he'd be taking this fight. How about this? Randy Couture won at 47. Glover Teixeira won the light heavyweight title at 42. Stipe's 42. Glover won the light heavyweight title at 42. Frankie Edgar won past his 40s. Yoel Romero won past his 40s. Jim Miller, who I think is fighting on this card, he's 40, right? He can still win fights. I probably think he will win this next fight. He just fought in a battle against a ranked opponent at UFC 300. But for some reason, Stipe at 42, a guy who's like based perfectly for that age, if you want to be old in the UFC, you want to be Stipe. You want to be a heavyweight. You want to have his style. You want to have all of it. It's perfect. And yet people act like 42 is too old all of a sudden. No, we've seen this. We've seen guys fight into their 40s. He's just fine in that area. How about this? Time off. There's this weird narrative around time off. Let's look at it this way. Since 2020, they've both fought twice. Right? Since 2020, they've both fought twice. Jon Jones has been inactive too. This is not just Stipe Miocic. And actually, at this age, it could be good for Stipe to have that much time off. Since 2020, they've both fought twice. Just think about that. Now, I understand Stipe has not fought since 2021. That's going to be over it's going to be about 3.5 years, I think, by the time he gets in there. Jones has fought once in that span. He's fought once. And it wasn't a 5-round heavyweight grueling fight. It was a quick submission where he really... he proved that he can be dominant. Ciryl Gane's a great fighter. But this guy didn't prove like I can just stay at heavyweight and dominate guys and just win actual 4-round fights. Right? And so, sure, Stipe's been off since 2021. Ask yourself this. How many minutes has Jon Jones spent in the octagon since 2021? Right? How many minutes has Jon Jones spent in the octagon since 2021? So what do you get the submission in? 2-3 minutes? So he's been in there for a couple more minutes than Stipe Miocic. And sure, you're going to talk about training camp and all that. But he's spent 2 more minutes in the octagon than Stipe Miocic since 2021. Is that a big deal to you guys? Because to me, it's not. It's not at all. And at Stipe's age, I'd actually take him not having that fight. Okay? It didn't prove his stamina or his striking ability at heavyweight. And when you really look at it, they've both taken over 3 years off, with the exception of Jon Jones wrestling for a couple minutes, which Stipe's probably done. By the way, Stipe's done the equivalent of what Jon Jones did, which was just wrestle for a couple minutes. I know there's fight energy and camps and build-ups and all that, but just think about it that way. They've done about the same thing, which is just they've both wrestled a couple minutes. They've both been in camp for a while, right? It's not like Jones has spent multiple 5-round fights in the time Stipe was away. Right? It's not like Colby Covington taking 3 years off and Leon Edwards has been piecing guys up over and over since he was gone. That's not what this is. This is 2 guys who have been inactive. So I'm tired of the Stipe's too old and Stipe's too inactive to win this fight. Because that's ridiculous. We've seen guys this old do it, especially at heavyweight. And they've both taken the time off. It's actually very close when you compare the kind of time they've taken off. Right? So even on a shorter term scale, it's not like Jones has been active. Right? Even when you look at it shorter, even when you take that Ciryl Gane fight, he's still been off for over 1.5 years by the time this fight happens. That's still a long time. So ask yourself this. Is 1.5 years that much different than 3.5 at this point in these guys' careers? So even if you're arguing that the Ciryl Gane fight is a big deal, and it's a big deal that Jones stepped in there more recently, he still had 1.5 years 1.5 years. 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 1 Jones is the one that got hurt. There's one guy coming into this fight that had an injury in training camp, and that was Jon Jones. Could that play a factor? Absolutely it could, but nobody's talking about that. I don't know why that is. So frankly, these are two fighters who are very inactive. Two fighters who are not in their primes, who are not in the groove of their primes. They're not fighting twice a year. They're not doing that anymore. Right? But for some reason, people want to act like this is different. And these are two very similar career paths and fighters facing off. Last thing, fight history. Okay? Let's talk about some championship fights for Jon Jones. You want to talk about notable championship fights for Jon Jones. Vitor Belfort, Chael Sonnen, Alexander Gustafsson, Glover Teixeira, DC again, Gustafsson again, Anthony Smith, Dominic Reyes, and Cyril Gane. Okay? And out of the fights that I just named, half of those were won by decision for Jon Jones. Now, I love Jon Jones. I don't think he's number one pound for pound like Dana, but I'm okay with calling him the GOAT. Totally okay with that. Totally understand. But let's not act like this is a guy that's just fought different animals than Stipe Miocic has. Okay, let's read off Stipe Miocic now. How about the title fights that Stipe Miocic has fought in? Alistair Overeem, Junior Dos Santos, Francis Ngannou won, then lost against DC, and then beat DC twice, and then lost to Ngannou. So every loss he's had, he's also beat that same person. Okay? This is a guy who beat Francis Ngannou for the title. That was only in 2018. That's only 6 years ago. And people say, if it was Ngannou and Jones, people would say, oh, it's 50-50. Right? But for some reason, the narrative's different here. He's beat Francis Ngannou. He's beat Daniel Cormier. And that's a big deal. That is a big deal. So let's ask ourselves this. Alex Pereira is 37 years old. Is Alex Pereira at 30? How is Alex Pereira at 37? Because I think Alex Pereira will still be doing what he's doing at 42. Not this dominantly. Like Stipe's not as dominant. Right? So how about Francis Ngannou? He's 38 years old. These are stars in our sport. And when you're doing light heavyweight and heavyweight divisions, come on, Robbie Lawler at 41 looked extremely sharp at middleweight. Glover Teixeira won the light heavyweight championship belt at 42. But for some reason, we're going to draw the line with Stipe Miocic. And it's just bothered me so much. And Ariel Helwani came out the other day and said, it's a 50-50 fight. I don't know why people are acting. It's a 50-50 fight. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think Stipe Miocic will win this fight. Look at all these statistical advantages. Leg kicks, he has the advantage. Striking, he has the advantage. Striking in close, he has the advantage. Takedowns, he actually has the advantage. Because Jon Jones spends 50% of the fight taking guys down. And he has a 12% chance to take this guy down per takedown. Per the statistics. 72% takedown defense for Stipe Miocic. That is a recipe for a W for Stipe Miocic. Whether it's by knockout or decision, whatever it is. And they've got Jon Jones at something stupid like minus 725. That is ridiculous. So I saw that and I thought about it. And I wanted to make a podcast about it because I wanted to point it out. And I thought this is absolutely terrible. The narrative around this fight. And I just wanted to open people's eyes that this is a real fight. And a fight that Stipe Miocic can win. And a fight that I am going to pick Stipe Miocic to win. Based on those statistics and based on everything I just said, Stipe Miocic will beat Jon Jones on November 16th. And I can't wait to talk more about it in the future because it's a fascinating fight. But ladies and gentlemen, this is a much closer fight than people are acting. But that's all I got for now. Stipe Miocic is going to win this fight. I am Austin Ullman. This is the Fight Talk podcast, and we will see you next time.